Hello, and welcome to the Sleepy Mind. Tonight we are going to slow down together and pay attention to something that has been happening all around you your entire life. Something so patient, so unhurried, and so quietly immense that it is easy to move through it without ever quite stopping to feel it. We are going to spend the next few hours inside the turning of the seasons. Not seasons as facts on a calendar, not seasons as weather forecasts or wardrobe decisions, or the arrival of certain foods in a market. Seasons as something deeper than all of that, as one of the oldest rhythms the living world has ever moved to, as a conversation between light and darkness, between holding on and letting go, that has been happening for longer than there have been eyes to watch it or words to describe it. There is something quietly paradoxical about the seasons. They are always changing and yet always returning. They are utterly predictable, and yet each one, when it finally arrives, carries something that feels new. Autumn has come before. It will come again. And yet the particular light of this afternoon, falling at this angle through these leaves, has never happened before and will never happen again. That is the strange, generous gift that seasonal time offers. Repetition that never quite repeats. The seasons are not something that happens to you. They happen with you. Right now, even as you listen, something in the world outside is in the middle of becoming something else. A leaf somewhere is shifting from green toward gold without anyone watching. A bird is adjusting its internal clock in response to a change in daylight that is too subtle for human senses to detect. The ground beneath the frost is already dreaming of spring. The world is always in mid-turn, and we are always inside that turning, whether we are paying attention or not. If these quiet journeys into the natural world and towards sleep are something you find worth returning to, I would love for you to like this video or subscribe to The Sleepy Mind. It helps more tired and curious people find their way here, one gentle evening at a time. But for now, there is nowhere else to be. Let your body settle into whatever is holding it. Let your shoulders drop a little. Let your breath move at whatever pace it naturally wants to move. You do not need to do anything with what you hear tonight except let it arrive. We are going somewhere slow, somewhere the pace is set by falling leaves and lengthening days, and the first morning you notice that something in the air has changed. Let's begin. Begin with the simplest thing, the reason any of this happens at all. The Earth is tilted. Not dramatically, not chaotically, but at a gentle and consistent angle of about 23.5 degrees relative to the path it traces around the Sun. That tilt, so modest in its measurement, so easy to overlook in any description of the planet, is the reason winter exists, the reason summer exists, the reason a particular afternoon in October can feel entirely different from a particular afternoon in May, even if the temperature on both days happens to be exactly the same. Everything that follows in this long, slow night together, every animal and every tree and every shift of light, and every human feeling that arrives with the cooling air, traces itself back to that single, quiet angle. Most people, if asked, would say the seasons are caused by our distance from the sun, that we are warmer in summer because we are closer to it, colder in winter because we are farther away. It seems obvious, it feels like it must be right, but this turns out to be beautifully, quietly wrong. Earth is actually slightly closer to the sun in January than in July. The difference is not enormous, but it is real, and it runs in exactly the opposite direction from what common sense would suggest. Distance is not the story. The tilt is the story. The way one hemisphere leans toward the sun for part of the year and away from it for another part. The way the angle at which sunlight arrives changes everything about how much warmth that light carries when it finally reaches the ground. Think of it this way. If you hold a flashlight directly above a piece of paper, the light falls in a tight, concentrated circle. If you tilt the flashlight at an angle, the same amount of light spreads across a larger area, and any single point on that paper receives less of it. The sun is the flashlight. The tilt of the earth changes the angle. Winter is not the earth being farther from the warmth. It is the earth receiving the warmth at a shallower angle, spread thinner across the surface, less concentrated, less intense. The same light doing less work because of the way it arrives. Because of that tilt, the northern and southern hemispheres experience opposite seasons at precisely the same moment. While one half of the world is buried in the long quiet of winter, the other is opening into summer. The planet holds both simultaneously, always. There is something almost companionable in that thought. On the longest night of the year in the northern hemisphere, somewhere south of the equator, someone is sitting in the longest afternoon of their summer, and both experiences are being produced by the exact same tilt, the exact same angle, the exact same piece of geometry that has governed this planet's relationship with light for billions of years. Twice each year, something precise and almost ceremonial occurs. The day and night become nearly equal in length everywhere on Earth. These are the equinoxes, arriving around the 20th of March and the 22nd of September, and their names tell you exactly what they are. The word itself comes from the Latin for equal night, a moment of balance, brief and exact, before the scales tip again in one direction or the other. On the day of the equinox, the sun rises almost precisely due east and sets almost precisely due west, everywhere on the planet. It is one of the few astronomical events that belongs equally to every place on Earth at the same time. And twice each year, the sun appears to pause, to reach its highest or lowest arc in the sky, and then hold there for just a breath before reversing its course. These are the solstices. Their name comes from the Latin for sun standing still. Even the language reaches for that quality of suspension, that brief cessation of change, that moment when the year seems to gather itself before beginning its long turn in the other direction. The summer solstice holds the longest day. The winter solstice holds the longest night. And in both cases, there is a stillness at the peak that the word solstice has always been trying to describe. Earth's orbit is not a perfect circle. It is slightly elliptical, which means the precise timing of seasons varies by a few minutes from year to year, and the lengths of the 4 seasons are not perfectly equal. Northern Hemisphere summer is fractionally longer than winter. These are small differences, barely perceptible across a human lifetime, but they are real. The world is not running on perfectly symmetrical machinery. It is running on something more organic than that, more variable, more alive. These are not abstract astronomical events. They are the bones beneath everything you will hear tonight. The invisible architecture that holds the whole turning year in place, that gives the animals their cues and the trees their instructions, and the light its particular color on a particular morning. Everything that lives on this planet has been shaped by this tilt, has adapted to it, has organized itself around it in ways so deep and so thorough that the tilt itself has become invisible, like the floor beneath a room full of furniture. You do not notice it, but it is holding everything up. Long before human beings developed calendars, the animals had already solved the problem of time. What is remarkable about the way most animals respond to seasonal change is not that they respond to temperature. Temperature is variable, unreliable, easily confused by a warm day in November or a cold snap in April. What most animals respond to is light, to the length of the day, to the precise ratio of darkness to brightness that tells a body, with more accuracy than any thermometer could ever offer, where the year actually stands. Daylight is the clock, and it is a clock that does not run slow or fast, that is not affected by local weather or microclimate, that has been keeping perfect time for as long as the planet has been turning. Birds do not begin their autumn migration because it is getting cold. They begin weeks before the cold arrives, because the shortening days have already triggered a cascade of hormonal changes in their bodies that prepare them for the journey ahead. The reproductive organs that swelled through summer begin to shrink. Fat reserves begin to accumulate with unusual efficiency. The restlessness that birdwatchers call Zugunruhe, a German word for migratory restlessness, begins to express itself in a bird's behavior long before the temperature has given any obvious instruction to leave. The decision is made early, quietly, invisibly, by something that has nothing to do with how the air feels on any given morning. The Arctic tern carries this relationship with light and season to its furthest conceivable extreme. Each year, it travels from the Arctic to the Antarctic and back again, a round trip of approximately 70,000 kilometers, more than once around the circumference of the Earth. It follows the light of 2 summers in a single year, moving between poles as the planet turns, living more hours of daylight across a lifetime than any other creature on Earth. That journey, undertaken year after year, generation after generation, by a bird light enough to be carried in 2 cupped hands, is one of the most extraordinary recurring events in the natural world. It asks something of the imagination to hold. A creature that small, navigating something that vast, guided by the most ancient and reliable compass there is. Hibernation, which the cold season appears to demand of certain animals, is not sleep. It is something far deeper and more deliberate than sleep. In true hibernators, the heart rate drops to just a few beats per minute. Body temperature falls close to the temperature of the surrounding air. The metabolism slows to a whisper, burning fuel at a rate so reduced that an animal can survive for months on the fat reserves accumulated through summer and autumn. A ground squirrel entering deep hibernation becomes, to all appearances, something closer to stone than to animal. Its body temperature may fall to within a degree or 2 of freezing. It breathes only once every few minutes. It has not died. It has simply stepped out of time for a season, and it will step back in again in spring, exactly when the world is ready for it. The black bear's winter sleep is different, and the distinction matters. Bears are considered light hibernators. Their body temperature drops only slightly, perhaps by a few degrees. They can wake relatively quickly if disturbed. A mother bear gives birth during this winter dormancy, and nurses her cubs while still in her den, something a true hibernator could not accomplish. The deep sleep of a black bear and the near-frozen stillness of a ground squirrel are both responses to winter, but they are different calibrations of the same general solution, and the difference between them reflects something about the environments each animal evolved to survive. Other animals enter a shorter form of seasonal dormancy called torpor, a daily or weekly reduction in activity and metabolism that allows energy conservation without the months-long commitment of true hibernation. Certain bats enter torpor during cold nights and rouse again when temperatures rise. Hummingbirds enter nightly torpor in cold weather, their heart rates dropping from hundreds of beats per minute to just a handful, their body temperatures falling dramatically, and then recovering each morning as if nothing had happened. The boundary between sleep and dormancy and hibernation is not sharp. It is a spectrum, and animals of all kinds are distributed across it according to their particular needs and the particular demands of their environments. Some animals change their appearance with the year, wearing different coats in different seasons as deliberately as any wardrobe change. The Arctic fox moves from summer brown to winter white and back again, an extraordinary seasonal transformation that requires the body to know not only what season it currently is, but what season is approaching, and to begin the change early enough that the transition is complete by the time the landscape has caught up. The snowshoe hare does the same. The ptarmigan, a bird of the Arctic and subarctic, cycles through several plumages across the year, each one matched to the particular mix of snow and ground and vegetation present at that moment. These animals are not merely surviving the season, they are wearing it. Antler growth in deer is one of the fastest growing tissues in the animal kingdom, and it is driven entirely by the seasonal light cycle. Through spring and summer, antlers grow at extraordinary speed, covered in velvet, a soft skin rich in blood vessels that supplies the nutrients for growth. As days shorten in late summer and autumn, the velvet dries and is shed, and the hardened antlers reach their full development in time for the autumn rut. After the breeding season, the antlers are dropped, and the cycle begins again in spring. An elk's antlers can grow an inch per day at peak summer growth. The whole elaborate structure, built and dismantled once a year, every year, is nothing more than the animal's body keeping time. There is a quality in all of this that asks something of us, quietly. These creatures are not managing their relationship with seasonal change. They are not negotiating with it, or resisting it, or trying to maintain the conditions of one season into the next. They are inside it completely, carried by it, shaped by it, moving with it as naturally as a river moves with the slope of the ground it crosses. They have no word for the season. They simply are the season, expressed in feather and fur and the particular restlessness of a body that knows, without being told, that it is time. A tree knows what month it is, not in the way we know, with clocks and calendars and the particular weight of certain dates on certain years. It knows the way a body knows, through sensation, through accumulated signal, through the slow and reliable arithmetic of light gathered and measured over weeks and months. The tree does not experience the shortening of days as an event. It experiences it as a gradual shift in a quantity it has always been tracking, a steady change in a number It has been reading continuously since the first leaf opened in spring. The shedding of leaves in autumn is called abscission, and it is not something that happens to a tree. It is something a tree does, deliberately, systematically, with a precision that has been refined over hundreds of millions of years of evolution. As the days shorten past a particular threshold, the tree begins to withdraw the nutrients it has invested in its leaves across the growing season, pulling back chlorophyll, the green pigment that powered the summer's photosynthesis, back into the branches and trunk, where it can be stored and redeployed next year. This withdrawal is an act of conservation, of careful housekeeping performed before the winter closes in. Nothing is wasted if it can be saved. As the chlorophyll retreats, the colors that were always present in the leaf, masked all summer long by the overwhelming dominance of green, become finally visible. The yellows and oranges were there in July. They have been there all along, hidden behind the chlorophyll that the tree needed through the long growing season. Autumn does not paint the leaves. It simply removes the green that was covering what was already there. The color was always waiting. The season only allows it to be seen. The reds and purples are different, and their story is more interesting still. Those pigments, called anthocyanins, are actually manufactured fresh in autumn, produced by the leaf in its final days of life. This costs the tree energy at a moment when it is already engaged in the work of recovery and preparation for winter. Scientists have proposed that anthocyanins may serve as a kind of temporary sunscreen, protecting the leaf tissue from damage by strong autumn sunlight, long enough for the tree to complete its nutrient recovery before releasing the leaf to the ground. The most vivid autumn colors, then, are not signs of dying. They are signs of a tree still working carefully, all the way to the very end. The brilliance of a red maple in October is not a farewell. It is a tree at full effort, doing its job until the last possible moment. A single mature oak can lose hundreds of liters of water per day through its leaves during summer, released through tiny pores called stomata, in a process called transpiration. In winter, with no leaves and frozen or absent soil water, this loss would be catastrophic. The shedding of leaves is, among other things, a water management strategy. The tree shuts down the system that would drain it dry before it can be replenished. Evergreen trees, which keep their needles through winter, have solved the same problem differently. Their needles are narrow and covered in a waxy coating that dramatically reduces the surface area through which water can be lost. They can continue to photosynthesize on mild winter days when deciduous trees are entirely dormant, but they pay a cost too. Needles are less efficient at photosynthesis than broad leaves. The evergreen solution is more conservative, more patient. It gives up the efficiency of summer in exchange for the ability to continue working through winter. Neither strategy is superior. They are different answers to the same question, shaped by different environments and different histories. Some plants require winter before they can bloom. The cold is not an interruption to their cycle. It is part of the cycle, built into it, necessary to it. A process called vernalization means that certain flowers will not open in spring unless they have first received a sufficient period of cold temperature. The tulip in your garden, the winter wheat in a field, the apple tree in an orchard, all of them require their winter before they can give you their spring. The season that appears to be stopping things is actually making the next season possible. The cold is not the enemy of the bloom. It is its prerequisite. Beneath the snow and the frozen ground, through months of what appears from above to be complete emptiness, bulbs and roots and rhizomes hold everything that will become next year's garden. Patient and still and entirely alive. Snowdrops carry their flowers fully formed inside their bulbs all through winter, waiting for the first warmth to release them. The bare ground of a winter field is not an absence of life. It is life in a different form, gathered downward, held in reserve, waiting in the dark, with no particular urgency, because the timing of the return is not determined by impatience. It is determined by light, and the light will come when it comes. Some seeds require a period of cold before they can germinate at all. Stratification, as this process is called, means the seed must experience winter before it is capable of spring. If you take such a seed and plant it in warm conditions immediately, it will not sprout. It will simply wait, dormant and unpersuaded, until it has received what it requires. The winter is built into the seed's instructions. The cold is part of what it means to grow. There is something in that worth sitting with for a moment. The necessity of the difficult season. The way certain kinds of flowering are only made possible by having first been cold. You are not separate from the seasons. The body has never believed that you were. Long before modern lighting allowed us to blur the difference between one season's darkness and another's, long before heating systems made winter temperatures irrelevant to our immediate comfort, human bodies were shaped by seasonal rhythms the way all other living things were. Those rhythms have not disappeared simply because the conditions that originally produced them have been softened by technology and architecture. They are still operating, still influencing sleep and mood and appetite and energy, still responding to cues of light and darkness that reach us even through windows and walls and the artificial brightness of screens. The season finds its way in. Melatonin, the hormone most closely associated with sleep and the onset of darkness, is produced for longer periods during winter nights. The body, receiving fewer hours of light, generates more of the chemical that says slow down, rest, be still. The time for outward activity is passing. This is not a malfunction. It is not a disorder to be corrected. It is the body doing exactly what it has always done, responding to winter the way winter asks to be responded to, with a drawing inward, a quieting, a natural inclination toward more rest and less expenditure. The modern world tends to treat this tendency as a problem. The body considers it a reasonable response to available information. Serotonin, which is associated with mood regulation and alertness, tends to be lower in winter months for many people, partly because its production in the brain is linked to exposure to bright light. The shorter days of winter are not simply shorter in duration. They are quieter in a biochemical sense, softer in their demands on the nervous system, tuned to a lower frequency than the long, bright days of summer. Many people feel this as a change in energy that they cannot quite explain or locate, a drawing inward, a reduced appetite for stimulation and novelty, a preference for familiar and simple things. It happens each year. It has always happened. And in most cases, it is not an illness. It is a season. For some people, this seasonal shift in mood and energy crosses into something more significant. Seasonal affective disorder, which has its own acronym and its own body of clinical research, is a recognized form of depression that follows seasonal patterns. typically arriving in autumn or winter and lifting as the days lengthen in spring. It is more common in northern latitudes, where the seasonal variation in daylight is most extreme. It responds, in many cases, to light therapy, the deliberate use of bright artificial light in the morning hours to compensate for what the shortened day is no longer providing. It is, in a sense, a case of the body taking the seasonal signal too seriously, responding to winter's cues with a depth of withdrawal that goes beyond what the situation requires. But even this is recognizably continuous with what every human body does in winter. The difference is one of degree. Blood pressure tends to rise slightly in winter in many people because cold causes the blood vessels near the skin to constrict, reducing heat loss and pushing pressure upward. The body is protecting its core temperature. In Northern Europe and North America, hospital admissions for cardiovascular events peak in the coldest months. The body is working harder in winter, even when it feels like it is doing less. The skin, deprived of sufficient ultraviolet radiation through the long winter months at northern latitudes, can no longer synthesize adequate vitamin D. This vitamin, which is not a vitamin in the strict sense, but a hormone precursor, is involved in immune function, bone health, and mood regulation, among other things. For several months of the year in northern regions, the sun's angle is too low to provide the ultraviolet radiation needed for synthesis, regardless of how much time is spent outdoors. The body stores what it accumulated in summer. The summer, in this biological sense, is doing work that will not be cashed in until winter. Appetite shifts with the seasons in measurable ways. Studies suggest that people naturally consume more calories in autumn and winter, gravitating toward heavier, more warming foods. This is not a failure of willpower or simply a response to holiday culture or the consolations of comfort food. It is a very old biological instruction, laid down long before there were bakeries or dining tables, reminding the body to build its reserves before the cold, to store what it can while resources are available, to prepare for the season of scarcity that the body's deep history still expects to arrive. The fact that the scarcity rarely arrives for most people in the modern world does not stop the instruction from being issued. There is something worth holding gently in all of this. The feelings that arrive with the changing seasons, the particular wistfulness of autumn, the heaviness of the winter's shortest days, the restlessness and almost physical yearning that accompanies the first genuinely warm days of spring are not arbitrary. They are not simply moods. They are old signals. They belong to the body's long, continuous, unbroken relationship with the turning year, a relationship that was established over thousands of generations before anyone thought to name it or study it or treat it as a condition. The seasons are not happening to us. They are happening through us. Someone, somewhere, has been writing it all down. Phenology is the science of watching, of recording with patience and consistency when things happen in the natural world. When the first cherry blossom opens, when the first swallow arrives from the south, when the ice breaks on the lake after winter has finished with it, when the oak leaves out, when the cuckoo sings for the first time each year. Its name comes from the Greek word for appearing, and what it studies is, essentially, the appearance of things, the moment each living thing shows up to mark another year. In Japan, records of cherry blossom festivals extend back over 1,200 years. The same trees, or the descendants of those trees, have been watched over the same mild, brief explosion of pale pink each spring by observers who noted the date of peak bloom with the same care that a scientist today would bring to a measurement, generation after generation. The individual observers did not know they were building one of the longest and most scientifically significant climate records in human history. They were simply paying attention to something beautiful that arrived each year and noting when it came. What those records show now, read together across 12 centuries, is a pattern of change so gradual that no single observer across a single lifetime could have detected it. Only the accumulated patience of 1,000 years of watching makes it visible. An English naturalist named Robert Marsham began his own record in 1736, noting on his Norfolk estate events such as the first leaf of the oak tree, the first arrival of the swallow, the first song of specific bird species. He called these his indications of spring, and he kept the record until his death. His children continued it. His grandchildren continued it. His family maintained those records for nearly 200 years after he died, long after he was forgotten by anyone outside the family, long after any single member of the family understood what they were collectively building. What he began as a private act of attention and seasonal love became in time a dataset of extraordinary value, one that scientists still use today to understand how spring has shifted across 3 centuries of change. These kinds of records work because seasonal timing is meaningful. When the first insect emerges, it is not arbitrary. It is a response to specific accumulated warmth, specific day length, specific environmental conditions. When that timing shifts, it tells you something about the conditions that produce the shift. And when the timing of one species shifts, but the timing of another does not shift in parallel, something begins to come apart. The insect arrives before the bird that eats it. The flower opens before the pollinator that needs it is ready. The caterpillar reaches peak abundance before the chicks that require it have hatched. These misalignments, which researchers call phenological mismatches, are among the more quietly alarming signals available to anyone paying attention to the natural world. They are what happens when a conversation that has been running for millions of years begins to lose its rhythm. The ice out date, the day each year when a particular lake's ice cover finally breaks up, has been recorded on some lakes for over 150 years. It is one of the most sensitive indicators of regional climate available, because ice formation and melting respond to accumulated temperature across months, smoothing out the noise of individual weather events into something that reflects the season as a whole. Looking at a long record of ice out dates is like reading a very slow diary of how winters have changed. To watch the seasons carefully, to note what arrives and when, to track the small events that most people walk past without registering, is not a passive or merely aesthetic activity. It is a form of listening, of staying present to a conversation that the natural world is always having with itself, a conversation about time and change and the intricate dependencies that hold ecosystems together. And the remarkable thing about that conversation is that it will continue whether or not anyone is listening. But something is different when someone is. The sky itself changes with the seasons, not only in its clouds and colors, but in the arrangement of everything it holds. The stars visible on a winter night are different from the stars visible on a summer night, because Earth's position in its orbit has changed, and the direction of space the night side of the planet is facing has changed with it. The sky is like a window in a room that rotates, and as it rotates through the year, different regions of the universe come into view. Orion, perhaps the most recognized constellation in the northern hemisphere's winter sky, belongs entirely to winter. By summer, it has shifted to rise and set in daylight, invisible in the dark hours, gone until the cold returns. The sky rotates through its own seasonal arrangement, stately and unhurried, offering different arrangements of light to whoever happens to be looking up. The quality of light itself is different in different seasons, in ways that go beyond simply the length of the day. In winter, the sun traces a low arc across the sky, never climbing far above the horizon, even at its midday peak. The light it sends down travels through a greater thickness of atmosphere to reach the ground, because it is arriving at a low angle rather than from nearly overhead. That longer passage through the atmosphere scatters the shorter blue wavelengths and allows the warmer golds and ambers to dominate. This is why a clear winter midday can carry the color tones of a summer late afternoon. The angle changes everything. The same sun, the same photons, the same fire 93 million miles away. But the quality of what arrives at the surface is entirely different, depending on the angle and distance it has had to travel through air. The golden hour that photographers have always sought, the brief window of warm, low, horizontal light just after sunrise and before sunset, lasts longer in winter than in any other season, because the sun stays closer to the horizon for a greater portion of the winter day. In summer, the sun climbs quickly and steeply and falls quickly. The golden light exists only in the briefest windows at either end of the day. In winter, the sun's arc is so shallow that the whole middle of the day can carry something close to golden hour quality. The light always arriving from a low angle, always warm, always slightly amber. The most beautiful light of the year is often winter light, occurring in the months when the fewest people are outside to stand in it and simply receive it. Twilight, the graduated dimming between full daylight and full darkness, lasts longer near the solstices than near the equinoxes, because the sun's path intersects the horizon at a shallower angle during those periods, taking longer to descend below the point from which it can still illuminate the sky. A winter evening can seem to go on softening for an extraordinary length of time, the sky cycling through rose and violet and deep blue over the course of an hour, reluctant to commit to full darkness. In summer at high latitudes, the sky may never fully reach the darkness that allows stars to become visible, because the sun remains just below the horizon through the brief night, keeping the sky in a permanent state of atmospheric glow. The harvest moon, the full moon closest to the autumnal equinox, rises at nearly the same time on several consecutive evenings, rather than following the usual pattern of rising approximately 50 minutes later each night. This happens because of the low angle of the moon's orbit relative to the horizon at that time of year, which reduces the daily shift in its rising time. For farmers working in the fields in the era before artificial light, this meant several consecutive evenings of bright early moonrise, extending the working hours of the harvest season without any human planning or
intervention. The sky, in its seasonal geometry, was offering a practical accommodation, and for thousands of years, that accommodation was simply accepted as the way things were.
Auroras appear more frequently in the months near the equinoxes than at other times of year. The reason involves the alignment of Earth's magnetic field with the solar wind during those periods, and the particular geometry of the Sun's orientation relative to our planet in March and September. The relationship between the aurora and the season is not obvious or widely known, but it is real. Even something as seemingly unearthly as the northern lights has its seasonal preferences. In the far north and south, the relationship between season and sky becomes its most absolute and extreme expression. Summer brings weeks or months of continuous daylight, the midnight sun, a sky that never fully darkens, where the sun circles the horizon without setting, and the concept of night becomes theoretical rather than experienced. Winter brings the inverse, polar night, weeks when the sun does not climb above the horizon at all, and the world exists in a long, deep blue twilight that is not quite darkness and not quite day. These extremes are not experienced by most people who will ever hear these words, but they are the full expression of what the tilt of this planet means, taken to its furthest geometric consequence, pushed all the way to the poles, where the angle becomes not a moderating influence, but an absolute one. Weather is the season made immediate and personal. It is the season arriving not as a concept or a date on a calendar, but as something felt on the skin, heard through a window left slightly open, smelled in the air before the rain has actually begun. The same large seasonal patterns that drive bird migrations and trigger hibernation and shift ocean currents express themselves at the level of a single morning as the particular cold of a November wind, or the particular heaviness of a July afternoon before a storm, or the way March rain smells different from October rain, even when the temperature and the intensity are nearly identical. The smell of rain has its own name, petrichor. It comes partly from a compound called geosmin, produced by soil bacteria when moisture arrives after a dry period. It comes partly from plant oils that have accumulated in soil and on dry surfaces across the preceding weeks. It comes partly from ozone produced by lightning in the approaching storm. The combination produces something that reaches past analysis and settles directly into sensation, into something that most people experience not as a smell exactly, but as a feeling, a quality of air that belongs to a particular kind of transition. The first rain of spring smells different from the first rain of autumn, and most people who pay attention to this agree that it does, even when they cannot precisely articulate the difference. The season is in the smell as much as in any other signal. Snow is not frozen rain. This distinction matters more than it might seem. Snow forms when water vapor in clouds freezes directly into ice crystals, bypassing the liquid stage entirely. Each crystal grows around a tiny particle of dust or pollen in the air, and its final shape is determined by the exact temperature and humidity it passes through during its formation and descent. A snowflake is essentially a record of its own journey, carrying in the geometry of its branching arms the precise atmospheric conditions it encountered on the way to the ground. The frequently repeated claim that no two snowflakes are identical is, in the strictest technical sense, true. Not because snowflakes are especially unique by some special dispensation, but because the precise sequence of temperature and humidity, each crystal passes through during its formation and fall is vanishingly unlikely to be exactly duplicated for any two crystals descending through different parcels of air. Frost forms through a different process still. When the surface temperature of an object drops below freezing and the air above it contains sufficient water vapor, that vapor can deposit directly onto the surface as ice, bypassing the liquid stage and forming the intricate crystalline patterns that appear on windows and car roofs on still, clear nights. The particular patterns of frost on glass are determined by microscopic imperfections in the surface, invisible to the naked eye, which provide the nucleation points around which the ice crystals begin to grow. The frost makes the invisible structure of the glass briefly legible. The jet stream, a fast-moving band of air that travels through the upper atmosphere, shifts position with the seasons, moving further north in summer as the temperature difference between the tropics and the poles decreases, and further south in winter as that difference increases. This seasonal migration of the jet stream carries with it the storm tracks that bring weather systems across continents. A winter in which the jet stream dips unusually far south can bring severe cold and snow to regions that rarely experience them. A summer in which it bulges unusually far north can allow heat to build in regions that are normally cooled by the passage of Atlantic weather. The felt texture of any given season, its particular character of cold or warmth or wetness, is in large part the story of where the jet stream has chosen to sit. Spring floods occur in many river systems, not primarily from rainfall, but from the rapid melting of winter snowpack accumulated over months in mountain watersheds. The rivers that flood most dramatically in spring are often fed not by recent rain, but by the cold that fell as snow 500 kilometers away, and is now, with the warming days, releasing everything it held all winter in a compressed period of weeks. A flood in May can be winter's delayed response, winter's stored water finally released by the warmth it spent the season waiting for. Wind sounds different through different seasons, and the difference is not only about the season itself, but about what the season has done to the trees it moves through. Through the bare branches of a winter tree, wind produces a high, thin, almost musical sound, a sound that carries across great distances because there is nothing to absorb it. Through the full canopy of a summer forest, the same speed of wind produces something fuller and more encompassing, more like the sound of water, a rushing that seems to come from everywhere at once. The forest is a seasonal instrument. The leaves are added and removed each year, and each configuration produces a different music from the same wind. The deep groan and crack of ice on a lake in late winter, produced by the thermal expansion of the surface as temperatures begin their slow rise, can carry for extraordinary distances across still, frozen air. People who have heard it describe it as a sound that seems to come from within the earth itself, from some depth below ordinary hearing. It is the season announcing itself through the body of the water, through the medium that has been holding winter for months, releasing the tension that has accumulated across the cold in a series of sounds that are not frightening exactly, but large. The scale of the sound matches the scale of what is changing. Before you can see that a season has changed, you can often hear it. The soundscape of the natural world has its own seasonal architecture, as distinct and internally structured as any landscape visible to the eye. researchers who study environmental sound have identified what they call acoustic signatures for each season in healthy ecosystems. Consistent, repeating patterns of biological and environmental sound that mark the time of year as reliably as any visible indicator. That change in ways which are measurable and meaningful, and which tell, to anyone willing to listen carefully, exactly where in the year's turning they are standing. Spring is the loudest season in most temperate forests. The dawn chorus, which begins before first light in the weeks following the spring equinox, involves dozens of species of birds singing simultaneously, each occupying a slightly different acoustic frequency or time slot in the morning's sonic architecture. Soundscape ecologists describe this layering as acoustic niche partitioning, the idea that different species have evolved to use different portions of the available acoustic space to reduce interference with each other's signals. The result of millions of years of evolutionary pressure to be heard is a sound of extraordinary layered complexity, a chorus so rich and so densely woven that it took researchers years of careful recording and spectral analysis to begin to understand its structure. From inside it, without analysis, it sounds like celebration, which, in its way, is not an entirely inaccurate description of what is happening. The dawn chorus intensifies in the days and weeks following the spring equinox, peaking typically around 4 to 6 weeks later in temperate regions. The males of most songbird species are singing to establish territory and attract mates, and the singing is most intense before the nesting season is fully underway. As the season progresses and pairs are established, the chorus gradually subsides. By midsummer, a forest that was cacophonous in April is relatively quiet in the early hours, the urgency of spring having been resolved into the quieter business of raising young. Summer settles into a different acoustic register. The birds are still present, but less compelled to announce themselves. The dominant voices of summer are insects. Crickets, whose chirping is produced by the rubbing together of their wings, a process called stridulation, create the characteristic pulse of a warm evening in a way that is so closely linked to air temperature that a formula developed in the late 19th century allows a reasonably accurate estimate of the temperature simply from counting the chirp rate. The formula is called Dolbear's law, and it still holds. The cricket is a thermometer. The season is readable in its rhythm. Cicadas produce their sound differently, using drum-like structures called tymbals on the sides of their abdomens, which they vibrate at extraordinary speed. The combined sound of a cicada chorus on a hot summer afternoon can reach volumes comparable to machinery produced by creatures the size of a human thumb. The sound is so specifically associated with summer heat that it functions as a kind of acoustic shorthand for the season, recognized across cultures and languages as the voice of the warm months. Winter is acoustically the quietest season in most temperate environments. Snow absorbs sound with remarkable efficiency. Its loose crystalline structure traps air and prevents sound waves from propagating, creating a stillness after a fresh snowfall that is qualitatively different from any other quiet. Insects are gone. The birds that remain, those that have not migrated, are quieter and less vocal. The absence of sound becomes, paradoxically, a presence, something that can be noticed, leaned into, inhabited. People who spend time outdoors in winter often describe the quiet not as the absence of something, but as the presence of something. a quality of the air itself that is available only in this season and only in these conditions. The shoulder seasons have their own acoustic character. Neither the full chorus of spring, nor the insect-dense warmth of summer, nor the winter's particular silence. They are sounds of transition, the chorus thinning, the insects arriving or departing, the wind moving through leaves that are not yet fully open or already beginning to release. In the weeks before spring, a forest can sound almost exactly like a winter forest, and then, over the course of perhaps 10 days, transform into something entirely different. The change is audible before it is visible. The birds announce the season before the trees agree to confirm it. Wind sounds different through different seasons, not only because of the trees, but because of the quality of the air itself. Cold winter air is denser, and sound travels through it differently than through warm summer air. The crack of a branch in winter carries further than the same event in summer. A voice across a frozen lake reaches the other side with unusual clarity. The season changes not only what sounds are present, but how sound itself behaves in the medium that carries it. Human beings have been watching the seasons change for as long as there have been human beings to watch. Every culture that has ever existed in a place with seasonal variation has developed ways to mark, name, honor, and make meaning from the turning of the year. The methods differ, the calendar systems differ. The specific events chosen for celebration differ. The impulse to notice and to mark does not. In Japan, there is a word for the feeling that seasonal beauty produces, particularly in its most fleeting expressions. Mono no aware. It is usually translated as the pathos of things, or sometimes as a gentle sadness at the passing of things, though neither translation quite captures the full texture of what the word holds. It is not melancholy exactly. It is closer to a tender, open-hearted awareness that beautiful things are brief, and that their briefness is not a flaw, but a fundamental part of what makes them beautiful. The cherry blossoms are held in particular regard in this tradition, not despite the fact that they last only a week or two, but precisely because of it. The whole country turns its attention to the trees during that brief window, arranging gatherings and festivals around the moment of peak bloom. The blossoms falling is not mourned. It is the completion of something that was always going to complete itself. And the watching of that completion is understood as one of the more important things a person can do with an afternoon. The Japanese traditional calendar, in one of its older forms, divides the year not into 4 seasons or 12 months, but into 72 micro-seasons, each approximately 5 days long, each named for a specific natural event. Frogs begin singing. The first paulownia leaf falls. Dew glistens on grass. Salmon gather in the shallows. Eagles learn to fly. The ice on the river thickens. These names describe a relationship with seasonal change so attentive and so granular that it notices not just which season is present, but which particular moment within that season, which specific note in the year's long continuous chord. The system was adapted from an ancient Chinese agricultural calendar called the Jieki, which itself divides the year into 24 solar terms. Both systems represent, at their root, the same impulse: the desire to name the precise moment of transition, to honor the year's turnings with enough attention that nothing passes unacknowledged. Many indigenous calendars around the world are organized not around fixed astronomical dates, but around ecological events. The salmon returning to their rivers, the particular berries ripening on the hillside, the arrival of migrating birds, the flooding and receding of rivers. These calendars track time through the events of the living world rather than through the abstract mathematics of astronomical measurement. They encode, in their structure, a relationship with seasonal change that is fundamentally reciprocal. The season tells you what it is by what it does. You know it by what is present, not by what the calculation says should be present. The Celtic festival of Samhain, observed at the end of October in the ancient Irish and Scottish tradition, marked the transition from the lighter half of the year to the darker half. It was a threshold moment, a time understood as existing between one condition and another, when the ordinary rules of the world were briefly loosened. The harvest had been completed. The livestock were being brought in from the summer pastures. The darkness was genuinely arriving, not as a metaphor, but as a daily felt reality, the evenings shortening rapidly, the cold establishing itself. That this moment of genuine seasonal transition was marked with ceremony and significance was not superstition. It was a response to something real. The world was actually changing, and the culture chose to acknowledge that change with the full weight of communal attention. The four-season model is not the only way a year can be organized. It is not even the most common one, if you measure by the proportion of Earth's surface it describes, or by the number of people for whom it constitutes lived experience. Near the equator, the year does not divide into warm and cold in any meaningful way. Day length remains nearly constant throughout the year. Temperatures vary within a relatively narrow range, and the primary seasonal rhythm is between wet and dry. The rains come and go on a pattern determined by the annual shift of the intertropical convergence zone, the belt of rising air that circles the Earth near the equator and moves north and south with the seasons. The dry season arrives with its own particular quality of light and air, hazy and amber, the vegetation pale and sparse. The wet season arrives with a different quality entirely, the air thick with moisture, the landscape transforming within days from spare to saturated. It is a different kind of turning, no less profound for being unfamiliar to those who grew up reading the year in the language of deciduous trees. The Mediterranean climate, found in the regions bordering the Mediterranean Sea, as well as in parts of California, central Chile, the Western Cape of South Africa, and southwestern Australia, runs almost contrary to Northern European expectations. Summers are hot and dry, a season of rest and waiting rather than of growth. Winters are mild and wet, the season when things grow, when the hills turn green and the wildflowers bloom. The seasonal emotional associations are reversed. Rain is a comfort and a relief. The dry brown months of summer are endured rather than celebrated. The landscape, the olive groves and the wild sage and the limestone hillsides, has been shaped by this particular seasonal logic over millions of years, and the cultures that have grown up within it have organized their agricultural rhythms, their foods, their architecture, and their daily patterns accordingly. In the boreal forests that stretch in an immense continuous band across Canada and Russia, winter is not one season among four. It is the dominant condition, lasting up to 8 months in some regions, deeper and longer and more total than most of us will experience. Spring in those forests does not arrive gradually. After the long frozen stillness, it arrives with something close to urgency. The ice out on the lakes happens quickly. The land thaws in rapid succession. The birds arrive in a compressed wave. The insects emerge. The plants that have one brief, intense window in which to complete their entire annual cycle push upward with an almost visible energy. Summer in the boreal forest is brief and luminous, and lived at full intensity, as if everything that lives there understands it cannot afford to pace itself. The high-altitude grasslands of the Tibetan Plateau, sitting above 4,000 meters, present perhaps the most extreme version of a compressed growing season available anywhere outside of the polar regions. Summer is short and intensely productive. The plants that manage to exist at that altitude have adapted to complete their entire growth and reproduction in a matter of weeks. Flowers bloom and set seed in compressed time. Animals move to the high summer pastures for the brief window of abundance. The entire seasonal arc that plays out over months in a temperate lowland is compressed, here, into something that can feel less like a season than a brief intensification, a single concentrated pulse of life before the cold returns. Alpine environments above the tree line exist in a permanent state of seasonal uncertainty. Conditions can shift from summer to winter in a matter of hours as a storm moves in. Snow is possible in every month. The growing season for alpine plants, which have evolved low-growing forms and specialized biochemistry to cope with the cold and the ultraviolet radiation and the thin air, may last only a few weeks at the highest elevations. These plants do not wait for reliable conditions. They respond to the first opportunity, growing and flowering at speeds that lowland plants cannot match. They carry winter inside their biology and spring in their readiness. What survives in those environments has adapted not to a particular season, but to the condition of never being entirely sure which season it is. There is a moment, each year, that most people recognize without being able to fully explain. A particular morning in October when the light comes through the window at an angle it has not held in months, and something in the body knows, before the mind has formed any thought about it, before any conscious processing has occurred, that autumn has arrived. Not arrived on a calendar, arrived in a way that can be felt in the chest or the back of the throat, or some other place that does not have a precise anatomical name. That moment of recognition, repeated year after year across an entire life, accumulates into something. A relationship with time that is not abstract or intellectual, but bodily. Seasonal memory stored not in thought, but in sensation, available to be recalled by the right quality of afternoon light, or the particular smell of cooling air, or the sound of leaves moving in a way they have not moved in months. Many contemplative traditions have understood seasonal change not as metaphor, but as direct instruction. In Zen Buddhism, the falling of autumn leaves is not used as a symbol of impermanence in the way a teacher might use a metaphor to illustrate a concept. It is presented as impermanence itself, immediate, visible, undeniable. You do not need to understand the doctrine of impermanence in order to watch a leaf fall. You do not need a teacher to explain it to you. The leaf falls, and something in the watching already knows what it is watching. The instruction arrives through the eyes, past the thinking mind, into something that recognizes the truth of it without requiring it to be translated into language. This is one of the things the natural world offers that no text can quite replicate. The Japanese aesthetic of wabi-sabi, which finds beauty in imperfection and transience, in the worn surface, the faded color, the vessel with a visible crack, the garden in autumn rather than in summer, draws much of its sensibility from the patient observation of natural seasonal change. The beauty it points toward is not the beauty of peak summer, abundant and unambiguous and fully realized. It is the beauty of the thing in the act of completing itself. The leaf turning, the frost on a surface that will be gone by noon, the last light of the year's last clear afternoon, falling at its low winter angle on a stone wall that has held that light 1,000 times before. Wabi-sabi says that this moment, this exact moment of passing, is not less than what came before it. It is its own form of completeness. Thoreau organized the central work of his life around a single year watched closely and written about honestly. Walden begins in summer and ends the following spring, following the calendar of the natural world rather than any other organizing logic. What that year offered him, and what he offered back to anyone willing to read the pages that came from it, is not a set of conclusions about nature or philosophy or the proper conduct of a human life. It is a quality of attention, a demonstration made through specific and patient and often very funny observation that the ordinary world, the actual world available to anyone willing to slow down and look, is inexhaustibly interesting. Not in a dramatic way, in the way that a pond is interesting, and a woodpile, and the sound ice makes in February, and the question of how much distance a person really needs between themselves and their neighbors in order to feel alone. Psychologists who study the relationship between people and natural environments have found that exposure to seasonal change is associated with what they describe as a sense of time feeling richer and more varied. Not necessarily longer, but more textured, more marked by specific, memorable transitions. The person who has watched a forest move through all 4 seasons in a single year, who has attended to the changes carefully enough to feel them rather than just noting them, carries a different experience of that year than one who spent it primarily indoors. The year means something different to them. It has landmarks. It has a shape. A philosopher named Glenn Albrecht coined a term for the distress that arises from unwanted change in one's home environment: solastalgia. It describes the grief of watching a familiar place alter in ways that diminish it, the particular pain of a landscape that no longer looks the way it should, at the time of year when it should look a certain way. One of the experiences that the term was developed to describe is the disruption of familiar seasonal patterns. The spring that arrives too early, the summer that extends too long, the winter that provides neither the cold nor the snow that memory says it should. These disruptions are not only ecological, they are personal. They reach into the body's accumulated seasonal memory and find something missing. The most interesting moment is never fully inside a season. It is always in the between. In the days when summer is not quite over and autumn has not yet begun. In the hour before the first frost, when something in the air is different, but the frost has not yet arrived, and you cannot point to anything specific that has changed. In the last week of winter, when the light has already shifted, but the cold has not released its hold, and the ground is still frozen, and the trees are still bare, and yet something has moved. Some invisible threshold has been crossed, and the season is no longer the same one you have been living in for months. These threshold moments, these shoulder periods, these days when the world is between one version of itself and the next, have a quality unlike anything that belongs to the settled center of a season. Late autumn light has been painted, photographed, written about, and deliberately sought out by artists working in every medium for centuries. It falls at a lower angle than any other season's light. It stays close to the horizon even at midday, and the warmth in its color comes from the long distance it has traveled through atmosphere to reach whatever surface it finally touches. A stone wall in late October afternoon light carries a quality that the same wall in June simply does not possess. Not because the wall has changed, but because the light has changed what it reveals. The season is in the light, not just in the temperature or the foliage or the calendar. And the light of late autumn is, for reasons that can be partly explained and partly only experienced, among the most beautiful light that most of us will ever see in our ordinary lives. Many languages have developed words for the feelings that belong to seasonal transitions, words that English has not found equivalent expressions for. The Swedish vintervila describes the resting quality of late winter, the sense of being held in a still space between the deep cold and the not yet spring, a state that is neither the resigned endurance of midwinter nor the anticipation of the thaw, but something quieter and more settled than either. A temporary permission to simply be where you are without urgency in either direction. Languages that have lived inside particular seasonal climates for long enough, for enough generations of speakers who needed to communicate precisely about their experience of the year, have developed these more granular terms, these names for feelings that are too specific and too real to go unnamed. Something is lost when such words are not available, something of the experience itself. Researchers studying emotional response to seasonal transitions have described a consistent set of feelings associated with what they call the first day of autumn feeling, a blend of nostalgia and anticipation and a quiet awareness of time passing that arrives reliably for many people with the first genuinely cool day of the year. The morning when you step outside and something is unmistakably different. Most people, asked to describe what they notice on such a morning, reach for the same handful of images. A particular quality of the air that contains something sharper and cleaner than the air of summer. A quality of afternoon light that has shifted toward warmth at the edges. The sound of leaves beginning to move against each other in a way that is different from summer wind through summer leaves. The feeling that something is beginning to take its leave and that the leaving is already in progress, already underway, even though there is nothing you can point to and say there. That is where it is happening. The spring transition has its own emotional signature, often described as a physical restlessness, an almost uncomfortable energy, a sense of something pressing outward from the inside that does not quite know what to do with itself. In Finnish, there is a word for this, a restlessness specific to the return of light, a feeling of almost painful vitality that arrives with the lengthening days after a long northern winter. It is not straightforwardly pleasant. It is too large and too sudden for comfort. It is the body adjusting to more light, more warmth, more possibility than it has had access to for months, and the adjustment is not smooth. Watching the seasons change is, at its deepest, a practice of staying present to something that is always in motion, of learning, year after year, that what is passing is not being lost. It is completing itself. It is doing exactly what it was always going to do, what it has always done, what it will continue doing long after any particular witness has ceased to be present to observe it. And you, watching it, patient enough to sit with the slow pace of its turning, are part of the same movement, held in the same unhurried rhythm. Moving through your own season, whatever it happens to be right now, as surely and as quietly as the leaf that has already decided to let go of the branch, and is, even now, on its way down. As we come gently to the end of our long, slow turn through the year, let everything we have moved through settle for a moment before it fades. We began with something as simple and as vast as the tilt of a planet, 23.5 degrees. An angle so modest it could be expressed in a single breath, and yet responsible for everything. For the Arctic turn crossing 70,000 kilometers of ocean and sky. For the oak tree pulling its chlorophyll back into its heartwood before the first frost arrives. For the particular quality of winter light on a stone wall at 4 in the afternoon, warm and amber and already beginning to leave. We followed that tilt through the bodies of animals who read the length of the day the way we read a clock, through the biology of seeds that require cold before they are willing to become anything at all, through the long, patient records of watchers who noted the first bloom, the first bird song, the first day the ice gave way, and left those notes for people they would never meet. We moved through the skies of different seasons and found that even the stars change with the months, that winter and summer look out onto different regions of the universe, that the light arriving on a December afternoon has traveled through more air than the same light in June, and carries the warmth of that longer journey in its color. We listened to the year's changing soundscape, from the layered complexity of the spring dawn chorus to the particular silence of fresh snow that is not an absence of sound, but a presence of something else entirely. We travel through climates where winter lasts 8 months, and through equatorial places where the year turns not through temperature, but through rain and its departure, and found that every climate, every rhythm, every version of the seasonal year has found its way into the bodies and the languages and the ceremonies of the people who have lived inside it long enough to need to give it names. And underneath all of it, running quietly through every cluster and every transition, was the same slow truth that the natural world has always been demonstrating to anyone willing to sit still long enough to receive it. That change is not loss. That what completes itself is not diminished by its completion. That the leaf falling from the branch in October is not failing. It is finishing. And there is a difference between those two things that is worth understanding, worth carrying into the rest of the night, and perhaps into whatever comes after it. There is nothing you need to hold on to from any of this. The mind will keep what it needs, the way the tree keeps what it needs before releasing the rest. You do not need to remember the name of the process by which leaves are shed, or the formula that converts cricket chirp rate into temperature, or the Persian New Year's precise relationship with the equinox. These things were offered as company for the journey toward sleep, not as content to be retained. Let them go the way the season lets things go, gently, without effort, without a backward glance. If these slow journeys into the natural world and toward rest are something you find worth returning to, the sleepy mind is always here. A like, or a subscription, or a quiet word in the comments helps more tired and curious people find their way to these gentle hours. This channel exists because of the people who find something worth coming back to in these unhurried evenings together, and every person who arrives here matters more than any number can express. And if your eyes are still open, there is another journey waiting for you nearby, another slow door into something quiet and interesting, ready whenever you are. But if the heaviness has arrived, let it be welcome. Let your body settle fully into whatever is holding it. Feel the weight of it, not as something to manage or shift, but as something to surrender to. Let your jaw release whatever it has been holding. Let your hands rest without gripping. Let the space behind your eyes soften, that small tense place that carries more of the day than it is ever asked to name. The year outside is doing what it always does, turning, slowly, patiently, without urgency or announcement. A leaf somewhere is finishing its color. A bird somewhere is adjusting its internal calendar in response to a day that was 3 minutes shorter than yesterday. The ground somewhere is dreaming, in its particular quiet way, of the warmth that is always, eventually, coming back. The world does not stop its turning because the hour is late and the light is gone. It turns in the dark the same way it turns in the light, steady and unhurried, carrying everything with it. You are part of that turning. You always have been. And right now, in this moment, in this breath, in this particular darkness that belongs only to tonight, the turning asks nothing of you except what it has always asked of everything that lives within it. To rest, to release, to trust that what is needed will return, the way spring returns, the way the light always returns, quietly and without fail, on the other side of the dark. Sleep well and good night.